Hello again. This week we're going from the sublime to the ridiculous, and we're looking at plated flatware. Before you all scream and run away and think it's all about Victorian forks and spoons that are worth about a penny each, we're not looking at that. We're looking at the earlier period, the first period of plated flatware, which is Sheffield plate. And actually, Sheffield plated flatware is much, much rarer than silver of the period. And it's good to be able to spot these things, and it's an interesting area of collecting as well. It's good to spot these because these are actually worth a considerable amount more than your normal Victorian domestic plate. So if you get an eye for it and you're rummaging through a big box of plated flatware, you might turn up one of these pieces, which would be marvellous. Quick refresher for everyone that doesn't know what Sheffield plate is. It is a large piece of copper, large ingot of copper, to which a smaller ingot of silver has been fused. The two materials then act basically in the same way, and they are rolled out into a thin sheet, and from that sheet various articles of silver were made. It was an alternative, a cost-effective alternative for those of lesser means, but also people that were very wealthy and had large services of table silver, still ordered extremely large objects like heater bases to tureens, often wine coolers. They ordered them in Sheffield plate because that saved them the expense of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of ounces of silver that, even if you're very wealthy, was a considerable expenditure. So this was for, until electroplating comes in about 1840, so for about 100 years, this and a couple of other far more niche techniques, a couple of which we'll look at as well, were really the only alternatives to solid silver if you wanted something that looked like solid silver. Silver flatware, however, silver fused plate flatware was not popular. Even Matthew Bolton, the great, touching back to last week, the great entrepreneur that would sell you everything and had the largest factory in the world, when one of his clients requested an entire service of Sheffield plate, he discouraged them from getting the flatware in Sheffield plate, saying it would be more cost effective because of the processes involved with making it, to go and get solid silver from London. Now, it's not every day that somebody like Bolton says that. So that gives you some idea of the technical problems and difficulties in making Sheffield plated flatware. Sheffield manufacturers had no such reservations. They were happy to supply you if they could, if they got the order. Now, let's have a look first at a tablespoon. So ostensibly, you can see the copper's worn through there. Ostensibly, that is a nice Georgian late 18th century tablespoon, obviously unmarked. Almost all Sheffield plated flatware is unmarked. There are rare examples where they will have the Sheffield plater's mark on it, but for the most part, they won't have anything on them. Now, this is interesting because this is made from two pieces of Sheffield plate. Firstly, the bowl, which has been stamped out and shaped. And secondly, the stem. And I don't know, you probably won't pick this up, but there's sort of very fine, thin lines. That has been rolled. That actually started life, and you can probably imagine it here, as a thick piece of plated wire. And that was put under a roller. And just the way you roll pastry out on a board, it was rolled out to form that Old English end, and then braised here. And often, one way you can tell a piece of Sheffield plated flatware from electroplate is made all in one piece, or even if it is assembled from various parts of base metal, the final thing that happens to it is the plating. So there will be this unbroken skin, continuous skin of silver over the object. The first thing that happens with a piece of Sheffield plate or fused plate is the plating process to make the raw material, the sheet to make the object from. So when you're cutting out or taking different parts and putting them together, you will get visible joins. So here, though you probably can't see it, there is, maybe you can there, there's this faint line. And that line is where those two pieces have joined, and you just get it, just a faint impression, a ghost of where that join is made. But that, perversely, although it is copper with a thin layer of silver on it, that is probably 1,000 times rarer than a Georgian silver tablespoon of the same period. These are very rare things, actually, the large tablespoons. And this is worth as much as a Georgian silver tablespoon. You know, not fortunes, but it is worth 40, 50 pounds to a collector because they don't survive. Also, this single drawn piece of silver wire, flattened wires, is more unusual. Later on, this is about 1775, 1785. Latterly, they're made in 3 pieces. Now this, although you can't tell because you're looking at pictures, this is about 4 or 5 times the weight of this. This is as light as a feather. Remember, it's stamp sheet silver and it's a flattened piece of wire. This is actually, the bowl is very heavy gauge. And what's unusual about the bowl is, I think, the bowl and the back, the whole thing, you'll see, again, if I breathe on it, you'll see a faint line running all the way round. And I believe this one to be so heavy because rather than, this is another example, this is the middle one, if you like. This is a single sheet bowl, again, quite thin. It's got a bit of wear to the tip there. And here, the back and the front of the stem, they're thicker and heavier. They are 2 separate pieces that have been soldered together. Stamped out, the front stamped out, the back stamped out, filled in normally with a little bit of solder or lead, and then brazed together. So that's much heavier. This is extremely heavy because this is the entire front of the spoon and the entire back of the spoon. And then those 2 pieces have been brought together. And that, in Sheffield plate, is a very unusual way to do it. This is actually an extremely rare tablespoon because it's using that double-sided process not only on the stem, which by the 1780s was becoming fairly commonplace for larger pieces of silver, but it's using the double-sided process for the bowl. And that required 2 specialist dies to be cut. And you can see the labour that goes into it. So what you're saving in not using silver and just stamping it out of a big ingot of silver and being done with it, you're having to compensate with all that labour. Of course, labour costs were less then, but it still had an impact. And this was why Bolton wasn't that keen to get his clients to order Sheffield plated flatware from him. I don't think he ever supplied it, actually. Someone will correct me if he did. But there are a variety of objects that you can find in Sheffield plate if you're lucky. I must confess, all the things I'm showing you now came from a sale some years ago, not far from where I live, and I think most of the dealers I know will have gone to it as well. And it was one lifetime collection of Sheffield plate, many thousands of pieces in the sale of every variety and description of object. It's quite overwhelming, quite amazing. And I didn't buy very much there, unfortunately, because lots of things flew away. I did buy one lot of, for quite decent money, one lot of Sheffield plated flatware because of how rare it was. And you'll be lucky to find 1 or 2 pieces of this if you look. To buy a tray full of it at auction was, well, I don't think it would happen again. But there were ladles. And there's a very fine Georgian again. Nothing's marked, so you go stylistically, but Old English pattern. Lovely, because they're die stamping the two sections of the handle, they can put a bit of decoration on. So they put that little bit of decoration on the back where it's going to join. And again, because they know there's going to be a join here, they're making a feature of it. You get that lip, which of course you wouldn't get on a silver example. That would be one continuous piece. But that's beautifully made and in lovely condition. And that's about 1790. But you do get other ladles that are more simply made. And when it comes to this edge, where they've cut the edge, that is simply tinned. A little bit of tins run around there to cover up the copper, which is often worn away by the time you get to see it. Rarer things, pieces like this. This would be a find if you're a collector of old Sheffield plate flatware. This is a sifting spoon, obviously. The bowl has been gilt to give it protection. And it's pierced. And of course, it's a bit counterintuitive to pierce something where you then have an exposed edge. So you don't often see these. But again, the bowl is one piece of double-sided, in this case, double-sided Sheffield plate, because you could fuse silver to the top and the bottom of the copper ingot. But the handle, again, is rolled wire, plated on one side, two pieces, and fused together. So there are all these variations. There's a good example. There's a cream ladle. So when you get those little pails or baskets for cream, a thick cream, think of sort of clotted cream if you like, you have a little ladle to scoop it out. That again is very simple, very rare, but very simple. Just a single piece of double-sided, double-plated metal for the bowl and two pieces of wire. And you'll always get that mark, that line where they've been brazed together. You'll always see the construction, even if you have to breathe on it and really peer, maybe even with an eyeglass, you'll always see the construction with fused plate. Here's another example, which is ostensibly exactly the same as the last one. But again, the bowl, it's two pieces fused. And again, two pieces fused here and a bit more meat and detail to the back of the stem where it joins the bowl. You can also get, in fact, one of the easiest things to find if you're looking